In this episode,
the planet that I have is called Eart because it's smaller than Earth, because I'm the guy who can't let things go.
Way to hold a grudge.
I'm not Betty. This is going to be an episode about emotional damage. My name is Paolo Garbanzo. I travel all over the world performing a jester comedy show. I do a lot of juggling. I also do some music. Badly. Could any wizard possibly make something that isn't detrimental to all of the people on the planet? It is the one creature that wizards created that's actually good for humanity.
Who wouldn't want to play D&D in a castle?
It's a hero's feast or a wake, depending on how your adventure went. You talk to some guy named Bob. His name is Bob?
Bob.
Yes, his name is Bob. Crit harder, better, and faster than any of your friends. You need a D21.
Dice Goblins,
Like,
you gotta get one.
IRL to RPG. If you want to call the street where the orphans live Orphan Street, guess what? It's real.
You can't make this shit up.
We don't have the running of the bulls. We have the running of the Tiamat statue. You know what? Just keep swimming, man. We're all in the eyes of Jawsus. Just keep swimming.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Pretty Nerdy Talk Show. Tonight, I'm going to introduce you to someone who I have had the pleasure of interviewing before on the Dungeon Studios channel, which I will provide a link somewhere up in here for you to go check that out. However, on my channel, I have the pleasure of having just one-on-one time with him, and I want to introduce you to Paolo Garbanzo. He is an entertainer extraordinaire and what I like to call a real-life bard, real-life jester. Paolo, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got into this.
Hello, thanks for having me on your show. It's my pleasure. My name is Paolo Garbanzo. I travel all over the world performing a jester comedy show. I do a lot of juggling. I do comedy. I also do some music badly, and most people try to get me to do more juggling. But I perform at Renaissance festivals, medieval festivals, as far as the Czech Republic, Italy, Germany, and back in England, where I am actually a jester of Muncaster Castle. And the reason I'm a jester is that I'm the winner of the International Jester Competition, which is held at Muncaster Castle. And which, of course, Muncaster, the home of the original tomfool, which is the person that we get that saying, "Stop all your tomfoolery." It was a real person, and there you go. The more you know. History.
It is crazy to me to think that Tom Fool was a real person. I don't know. I just assumed like Rumpelstiltskin or was
Right.
Don't break my brain and tell me that was real too.
Right. Not as far as we know. And I assumed myself that Tom Fool was more of a kind of Robin Hood character, where, you know, there are Robin Hoods in England for literally 700 years. It's like Batman, just kind of continues the, that Robin Hood is dead. There's even like, we hanged Robin Hood in this town. And then like 50 years later, there's another Robin Hood. And you're like, oh, so it's not, I just thought, Tom Fool. Oh, he's a Tom Fool, blah, blah, blah. No, actually, real guy.
Real guy.
Last name, they have a painting of him and everything. And there are many records of him. He actually became the steward of the castle. So he actually died quite a wealthy person. So did pretty well for himself as far as jesting goes.
Last name?
No. Skelton was his last name, actually.
That's right.
Tom
I
Skelton.
think I remember you mentioning that before. Yeah. That is so wild.
There is a painting of him, which it's the largest painting of a non-noble person of that era in England. It's almost life size. It's 5 feet tall.
Wow.
And for a non-noble, that's like buying a Lamborghini. Like that costs so much money that you don't just do that. Like only the paints, every single paint, every dye, every color was unbelievely expensive. And
wow.
You just didn't do that unless you had the money to blow, which apparently he did.
Yeah.
So 20th level bard, stacks of cash,
you can get away with a lot. So when did this International Jester Competition start? Do you know the history or the origins of that?
They started doing it about 20 years ago. I will say the Muncaster is castle way out. It's in Cumbria, which is the very north of England, or the very south of Scotland, depending on your opinion.
I see.
It just depends on, normally some Scottish guy would leap in and yell, "Freedom!" But
Oh my god.
It's fine. But yeah, so they're kind of out there in the country, and they wanted to kind of do something to encourage some tourism. So they started doing. It's like, well, what do we have? We have great, beautiful countryside, an amazing garden, and the most famous jester in the entire world.
Yeah.
So why don't we do something jestery? So they started doing this they started doing a jester competition, and now they have a jester competition during their medieval festival. So they have a big medieval festival.
And they've tied it all together.
With all of that. Then at the end of that, we're doing our Dungeons and Dragons tour to their castle. So
that's right. We didn't even include that in all the accolades. By the way, folks, okay, I know we're still kind of going through the intro process, but there's so much this guy does. We'll get to it. But yeah, so you have a destination D&D tour company that, can you talk about that a little? Where do you guys go and what do you guys do?
So my company's RenAdventures. Since I do Renaissance fairs, I do Renaissance fairs and medieval fairs in Europe as well. And so I bring people mostly from America. We've had some other international people, but mostly from America, bring them over to Europe. And we will go to these medieval festivals and medieval towns. And, we'll go to Florence, and we'll go to the Czech Republic, and all these really amazing places. And of course, most of the people that I bring, big surprise, big fans of Renaissance fairs, also play Dungeons and Dragons. So we kind of became a natural progression to go from going to medieval festivals, medieval tours, and then sitting back late at night after we've gotten back from the tavern and throwing some dice, because why not?
Yeah.
Because that's it. And so then we just started doing that in conjunction with Muncaster Castle. We've done it at a couple other castles as well, but of course, being friends with the people at Muncaster Castle, it really does help and adds to the experience.
Yeah.
There's literally, Lord and Lady Muncaster and their son, who now kind of runs the castle, who are there living at the castle, and you can see all their stuff. It's all there.
That's so cool.
They've had that castle for 800 years. That family has owned it.
Wow.
And it's been quite some time. So.
Oh gosh, I know D&D in a castle. Separate company, but the concept is just like, who wouldn't want to play D&D in a castle among other locations, right? I know right now you're in Louisiana. What kind of a D&D vibe do you do there? Is it like a horror Gothic kind of thing? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, spoiler alert, there's gonna be vampires. I mean, that's, sorry, you can't go to New Orleans and then not do vampires. So there's going to be some vampire action. So if you're familiar with the Red Death scenarios in Dungeons and Dragons, where it's this whole other kind of alternate universe, a little bit Gothic. So we're kind of taking some of that and making it our own, running our own scenario. And it's going to be really awesome, because what we do is we do a little bit of we'll do a tour, we'll do a carriage ride through the French Quarter. Now the event is at the La Provençale Hotel, which is in the French Quarter, and it's one of the most haunted hotels in the French Quarter. So that's going to be exciting, and you don't even have to play Dungeons & Dragons. Just wander around the hotel and have your own adventure.
Oh my God, I would love to stay in a haunted hotel.
And then we end that tour with, so the Friday night, we have a big feast. We have, like I said, it's a hero's feast or a wake, depending on how your adventure went.
Oh my gosh. Has that actually happened?
Way,
has somebody's character died and you guys threw a wake?
We've never had a TPK.
Okay.
Which is like, we kind of want, obviously we're not trying to kill everyone, but we're kind of like, God, that would be really kind of funny if just you get wiped right there at the end of the game and you're like, you don't save the world. We have had a few characters get killed at the end of the, big fight at the end. Hey, sometimes it happens, heroic death scene, of course, all around. And then, we of course toast the fallen. That becomes a big, it's great. And we've even had some characters, I will say, they've like decided that, their character's just gonna go off and be a vigilante. And then you're like, it's probably not gonna end well for them, but good time. So,
And you run the session?
Oh, so I run one of the sessions. Now we have
Okay.
now this tour we have 18 people signed up, so it's 3 tables of 6.
Oh, okay.
So I'll be running one of the games, and then of course we have some of the other. We have one of the jousters from the Louisiana Fair is running the game, and also Judas and Magnolia. He's an escape artist and a mentalist, and he's actually going to be doing a seance each night for each of the parties. So one by one, we have we have a tarot reader doing a tarot reading for one of the parties, and we'll have
Why
a
didn't I
seance
sign
one of
up
the
for
parties.
this?
There's still time.
Yeah, is there? Okay.
I think there's one spot available. So as of this at this moment, so it may be different by this.
Dang it.
But yeah, so each night we have our scenario, and then like one group goes and does the seance, and then one group goes off and does the tarot reading, and then another group will go and do a little private tour with one of the dungeon masters, and so then each night that will switch.
Got it.
So depending on which night you get which night you get the tarot reading, you'll get different information, because as the game is progressing, each one's gonna have their own clue.
Yeah.
So
Being
pretty cool,
a
honestly.
mentalist probably gives him a really good edge for this, I would think. So
and then we end that tour with a VIP tour of the Louisiana Renaissance Fair.
Yeah.
So like we have special seating at the joust. So for the heroes of the realm, so you get some VIP seating during the final joust. There's fireworks that night. So of course the mead will be flowing, and we'll have seating arranged for some of the shows that we're going to, some private tours, backstage pass for some of the areas that we're going to go to.
Yeah.
And then fireworks.
Wow. So definitely check out that other interview that I just mentioned. We didn't talk about this Louisiana one, and I wish that we did back then, because I would have looked more into maybe trying to fit that into my schedule, because my next D&D character, I have plans to create someone who's kind of like a tarot card, tea leaf reading kind of and I haven't figured out exactly what class, because I can probably do that with just about any class if I flavor it right? But I picked up tarot cards. I'm trying to figure it out. There's so much. There's no way. I'm just gonna goof my way through it because it's D&D. God, to have a real tarot card reading, to have a real seance.
If you noticed, my business card is the mage of the tarot deck, and it's the tarot. It's the World Spirit tarot deck. So which is the deck that my wife made. Actually, she hand carved those. Those are wood carving cards that are printed and then colored. So yeah, it's the World Spirit tarot deck. I'm number 1, as the mage card is the number 1 card. So the Fool is the 0, and then the mage is number 1. So
interesting. I'm surprised you didn't pick the Fool, I guess.
Well,
no,
there's reasons.
Is there? Okay.
Well, the mage is a little bit more. Maybe 20 years ago, I'd have picked the Fool.
Okay.
But the mage is a little bit more further on the journey.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Of the tarot deck.
So,
also, he in the tarot card, most tarot cards will have him actually kind of juggling sometimes.
Oh.
And this one is definitely juggling. So.
Okay, very cool.
Depends on the deck.
What's the word? I was gonna say it's not a groupie, but I want to just go to all the different destinations. I said this in the last interview. I'm like, I'm gonna do the one in the castle, and now I'm like, ooh, I really want to do the one in Louisiana. I'll just go to all of them.
Well,
eventually.
we're gonna probably do it next year, so depending on how it goes, and it seems to be going pretty good right now because we're building all the things for it. We've got these build. I found some 3D buildings that are New Orleans buildings.
Oh, okay.
They are gorgeous. So we've got some great 3D battle buildings that there may or may not be a running battle through the streets of New Orleans, and we'll have buildings that you can jump on and run across the balconies and leap into action.
Man, that's so cool. Are all your games in this world that you created?
Yes. The other thing that I do, of course, we have a Twitch channel, Nat21 Adventures, and it's myself and several other Renaissance Fair performers that got together during COVID to do something. And so we started playing games, and since I was the impetus around this channel, I said, okay, everything's gonna be in my world, that is anything that's D&D is going to be in my world, and you can put anything in it. And the planet that I have is called Eart, and that is because it's smaller than Earth. And I think
it's so funny.
It's one letter short. It's a one Earth. Yeah, so it's 20% smaller.
Yes.
So I think the reason it's called Eart and not Earth or some other thing is because I'm the guy who I can't let things go. In 4th grade, I misspelled Earth on a science test, and I misspelled it Eart, and I got every other planet right except for that one. She was like, "Yeah, nice job. Somebody messed up the word Earth."
The teacher said
Earth
that?
Right. And I was like, "Yeah," because the thing is, like, well, I had worked so hard on that quiz. Again, this is 4th grade, right? But I was like, Saturn and Jupiter, and I know all these words, and I was the first one who finished the quiz first, like when I turned it in, and I had left Earth for last because you also had to put it in the right place. So it was like I'd left Earth for last because I knew Earth. It's the 3rd one from the sun.
Right.
So but I was going so fast that I left off the letter H at the end of Earth. And she went, "Oh, you spelled Earth wrong." And I said, "Actually, that's my planet, and it's called Eart, and so it's actually correct." Mm-hmm. So then I went and erased every letter from the last letter from every other planet, and so in my solar system, the sun is called So instead of Salt.
What about Pluto?
Mar.
Is it just Plut?
Plut.
Oh my god.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Way to hold a grudge. I love it. It's so funny though when you say that.
I'm not Betty.
Because I remember specifically, and now I wonder if other people have this memory specifically, because everyone probably had to do like a spelling bee around 4th grade or something. And I also remember the word that I forgot. I will never misspell breathe again because I left the last letter off and I spelled it breath. And I remember coming off of that stage and being mortified that I forgot that letter. That is so funny.
Oh,
and
man.
I still to this day.
Wow. No, okay. So now this is going to be an episode about emotional damage.
Okay.
So I just remembered I had a spelling bee, and I don't know, it was 6th, 7th grade. I don't know, but they were like, the word was waste, and I was like, WAIST, and they're like, no, not that one. And I was like, there's another one. And you know how sometimes you just forget that words exist?
Yeah.
And I was like, waste. Waste. What other waste is there? What are you talking about? How is there? And it was like, time's up, pal. And I was like, what are you saying? And
Speak English.
It's WASTE, waste, as in trash. It's like, So yeah, I remember that too. Yeah, I remember that.
Oh God, that's so funny. They really liked to just humiliate us back in the day. Like that's how you learn how to spell is you get humiliated and you will never forget.
I'll never spell Earth or Eart wrong ever again.
Ever again. You know the distinction.
Never again.
All your games are in this world when you run it. And is that also the same for the destination tours? It's also in Eart, or is it's something different?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's in Eart, and so of course because we like to build on all the things. So I mean, the entire crew of Nat 21 is extremely creative people, and some of the people I've worked for decades. And we've played numerous games of Dungeons and Dragons. So the world has been turned over and built and like it's like I like to think of it as fractals.
Yeah.
Like, there's certain cities that they've hung out in for so long that we've gone down every street and every shop has a name, and it's like, because the more like, oh, you're going back to that shop, and then someone goes, well, what's the shop next door? Because I'm gonna sneak into that one while you're doing, and I'm like, I don't know, it's a candle shop. Okay, write it down. Candle shop. And then and who was that? You talked to some guy named Bob, and his name is Bob.
Yep, Bob.
Yes, his name is Bob. That's his name. And so like, and I have to say that this city has been around for so long, right? It's kind of it's as I like to call it, it's a libertarian paradise run by wizards who are mad for power. So it's really bad.
Oh God.
And so like imagine a bunch of power mad wizards running a city. Well, it's like 14th century Florence. actually.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a madhouse, and then add fireballs to the mix. So, but it left such a lasting impression on some people that when I was talking to some people that I've played with for like 20 years ago, I played with them, and I was like, oh yeah, well we're doing Nat 21, we're gonna bring it back, we're gonna do this thing, blah blah blah, and yeah, no, I think we'll probably start in Magecroft, and literally I had two friends who were like, oh god, like.
They
like,
just had some visceral reaction.
Honest to goodness, visceral reaction to like then remembering that city and how just horrible it was. It's like it doesn't exist. It's not real, guys. And like proudest moment as Dungeon Masters when your imaginary world like leaves a scar on someone.
Emotional damage.
Emotional damage.
Yep. So let me ask.
And they were just like.
So this world, you mentioned that it's kind of been built together with your colleagues. Do you have it all somewhere like online that everybody accesses, that where everything's kept track of, or do you guys somehow check in and go, oh, by the way, the next door shop is now a candle shop run by Bob? Like, how do you guys keep this all straight?
So yes and no.
Okay.
So sometimes, and sometimes what we'll do is they will run an adventure that's in another place. Mm-hmm. And then we'll just have to link those two places up. And then other times they're like, okay, I want to run an adventure here in this, in this part of the city. And so we're like, okay, well, here's the information. So we do have like a database. And they're like, okay. And then most of the time, if they're not gonna add anything that's like too crazy or like destroy any guilds that are running the city or anything like that.
Yeah.
So normally it's okay, but if they're like, is it okay if maybe they smash this guy's building and maybe this happens? And I'm like, I really love a dynamic set.
Yeah.
Because it keeps things like, that's no longer a candle shop. They burned it down.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay.
Interesting.
Which has happened where this is one of the early episodes of our Nat 21 adventures where somebody got turned into a Triceratops in a potion shop and then rammed their way through half the town and destroyed the shops that were across the street. And it's like, and then like 5 episodes later, they're like, well, there's the burned out building that was this shop, and so you're like, it continues to live and it's still alive. So
wow.
So yeah, I love that.
So what do you guys use? Is it just like an online like Google Doc or just curious?
It's
like
mostly Google Docs.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
There are some really good world building things that I've seen that are actually really great. I'm like, should probably use this, but that might be easier. But no, right now we just use Google Docs and just go back and forth. And then I have to give a big shout out to our Twitch moderator, Reverend Tommy, who remembers all of these details, because sometimes we like don't write it down. Like we forget what building got set on fire. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, that was episode 37. Yeah,
oh, wow.
that was the sausage factory. Yeah, you guys blew that up. Yeah, and then like there was millions of rats that came out because the sausage were everywhere, and then we're like, wow, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that episode.
You guys have your own personal Danny Carr. Do you watch Critical Role?
Yeah, it's like it's
Danny
exactly
Carr
that.
knows all that stuff. That's amazing. That's so cool. I was gonna say I use World Anvil, and not that I'm like sponsored by them or anything, but if you haven't checked that out, I feel like that would be a really great system.
That's one of the ones that I've seen. Really.
Yeah, because you all can add all your things and link it all together, and oh, that's so cool. Yep. Oh, I wanted to show everyone. You keep mentioning Nat 21 Adventures, and we haven't done this thing yet. For folks who are dice goblins, you guys need to check this out. I am bad with the camera thing. Where is it? Is that the 21? There we go. That always really throws me for a loop. I'm like, is right left is right? Anyway, dice goblins.
Like, oh, my dice are over there. I can't get them.
Yeah, you gotta get one.
Yes, we have dice D20s. They do go to 21. So if you want to be able to crit harder, better, and faster than any of your friends, then you need a D21. Well,
You need them.
it is technically a D20. It just goes to 21. It's
Right.
just one better than everybody else.
My son, so I had pulled in my son into D&D at a very young age, and so when mine came in, I was so excited, and I opened it up and I showed it to him, and he immediately goes to like inspection mode, and he's like checking it over, and he goes, "Oh, yeah, they did a good job. This is the right way to do it." I'm like, "Okay." Apparently he knows. But yeah, it was. Oh, I'm so excited.
Tell him thank you. And yes, I'm glad we got his approval. And,
Yes.
yeah.
So let's go back to Eart. So when did you initially get the concept that you're gonna build a world for your D&D campaigns out of Eart? Like, what was the initial little spark that was like, I'm gonna make this into a world?
Oh, really? I started building that world when I was probably 15.
Oh, wow.
And it has gone through several changes. Like I had a whole map, but that turned into a different map, and then it was like, you know what? I'm gonna make this. I got a little more educated about like what coastlines actually look like. Rivers flow towards oceans, and actual topography, I guess. So I modified the maps, but some of those towns still exist. They've just morphed into the new creation. So there's still this empire that is basically like Romans. It's basically the Byzantine Empire from like the 12th century. And they're kind of like, they pretend to be the good guys, and from all intents and purposes, they are the good guys, and they have such a great, noble, well-run city. But once you figure it out, they're fascists. And you're like, oh, these guys are fascists. Hang on. Like,
Wait, this is the same place where they have marble for roads, or no?
Oh no, this is a different place.
Oh, okay.
But they would have marble. They'd have marble in the rich neighborhood. So
yeah.
Yes. No. So yeah. So there's that empire. When talking about the Roman Empire is a thing about talking about the Roman Empire. So of course when I was 15 or 16, it's like, yeah, the Romans, and so there was this empire, and for all intents and purposes, they were mostly good. And then when you realize that like they actually invented the word fascista, which is it's the sticks with the axe sticking out of it. That is the rule of the Roman law. That is to say that we can beat you with these sticks, or we can take your life with this axe. And that's the fascista. And that's where the fascist came from. So you're like, Anyway, not that I get too political in my games, but sometimes it does end up, if the party gets high enough level where they start becoming important to the government, and I say important, I mean like, because of course you become like a 12th level anything, you're ridiculously powerful, and you're influencing things, major things. So of course whoever's in charge is going to take notice. We had an episode where the party they obtained a flying castle, but then they crash landed it in the river.
Oh no.
They tried to land it on an island, ended up crashing it in the river that was where the city was. And the city was like, I'd like to talk to you about your castle that you just put up here. And you have to imagine that in a magical world where many people exist, where many wizards, many castles fall out of the sky. Like, yeah,
that's just the norm.
Probably more than you'd think. You know? So like they have to be ready for that sort of thing. So they have these crazy, all sorts of crazy. But so Magecroft, that is the city that we're talking about, where the rich wizards have their own little gated community called Wizarding Heights. And it is, all the streets are paved with marble, and they all live in their literal ivory towers. And they are kind of the city, that's the gated community in the city of Magecroft, where it's basically where two magical ley lines cross. And so of course there's just a lot of natural power that all of these wizards and sorcerers can get a hold of. Pop up that map there and show them. So Magecroft has itself, if we want to kind of talk about those kind of building a city, building a fantasy world, because I've traveled all over these many places, and I'm like, oh, I've seen medieval cities. I know how they function and how they, are built on top of things. And so the Wizarding Heights that one I've actually taken from a small Sicilian city called Taormina. Taormina is the kind of like the jewel of Sicily. It's very, very posh. Actually, it's recently on White Lotus.
Oh, yeah?
The TV show.
Okay. I'll have to check it out.
They filmed a bunch of episodes in Taormina, which, of course, if you know your Sicilian beaches like I do, you'll know that the beach scenes were filmed in a different city.
Oh, really?
The beach that they filmed is in Cefalù, which is also in Sicily, but it's around the corner, let's just say. And then they filmed the city scenes in Taormina. So yeah, but anyway, it's a super posh place. The streets literally are paved with marble, and I know what you are saying. You're saying marble is a terrible stone for streets because it's soft. And you would be correct. The place was so posh that they didn't have big carts. They had tiny carts, and so they didn't really damage the street as much. And or they had enough money to replace that marble when it got bad.
Right.
And they would just switch it out because it was a very, very important trading city that made a ton of money. So
yeah,
they were like, yeah, we're posh. We do that. So I figure that's what wizards do. So I just literally put that little city inside of my bigger city that is a bit more like Edinburgh, really.
Yeah.
And,
that's something that I really love to hear you talk about, because this is what I promote a lot on my channel when it comes to world building, is taking the real world. Because honestly, there's so much crazy stuff in the real world. If you just look for it, that you can't make this shit up, right? Like, it's so good. So there's so much stuff in the real world that you could steal for your campaign, your story, your book, whatever. It's so crazy.
So here's something I didn't even talk about at all. So I have a little TikTok that I do, and I try to post as often as I can, but I should post more. But I have all this whole thing where I have a series of videos called what do I call it? I call it IRL to RPG, which is like in real life to RPG.
That's a really great. I love that.
Yeah. So it's all of this crazy stuff. So like, I mean, I post my juggling videos. I post some comedy videos. I post the Destination D&D videos. So it's a hodgepodge of all of the things that I do. But so I'll be like, okay, episode 3 in IRL to RPG. There are crazy things that I will see in some town, and I'm like, no one would ever believe that this is a real thing.
Yeah.
So when you put this thing in your game, hey, it's actually real. If you want to call the street where the orphans live Orphan Street, guess what? Guess what? It's real. It exists. The street with the orphanage at the end of the street is called the Strada degli Orfani, which is the street of the orphans.
Oh my god.
That's the name of the street.
That is so funny.
So next time, your players are giving you crap about some wacky name that you made up.
Yeah.
You just called it, I don't know, Leather Shop Street.
Yeah.
Guess what, people? That's what the street's called.
Yep.
Because the most important thing down that street was the leather shop.
That's
all these things are real.
Amazing.
I'm trying to think of like one of the episodes that we go over to my TikTok, which is Paolo Garbanzo. So there's so I had dinner at this little restaurant in Agrigento, Sicilian city. It's the base of this city is 3,000 years old. Okay, the Greeks showed up at 800 BC somewhere. It's a bit hilly. The city's on the side of a mountain. You go into the restaurant, and I was talking to the restaurant people. I was like, oh, this looks really cool. And they're like, well, you can go even further back into the restaurant, which goes into the mountainside, into what used to be the cellars. And you can go even, like these underground, like ancient caves. It's just part of the bar.
That's so cool.
And the food was amazing. And I go, what's that door over there? Oh, that door. That goes to the crypt of the church next door. And I was like, I'm sorry. He's like, yeah. The church dug their crypt into the side of the mountain, and they kept digging. But everybody keeps digging, right? You build your wine cellar. Well, you want a bigger wine cellar, you keep digging.
Yeah.
And the church next door keans digging, and then eventually they bumped into each other.
And so then they create a door because you want to connect them?
Well, I mean, you're not going to put the rocks back.
That's true. I see.
so you just build a door. And I was like, okay, so the next time your players get back to the tavern and then you tell them they're being attacked by zombies, you just tell them that it's real.
Yes. Oh my god.
It's like, where are the zombies coming from? Well, turns out that there's a door that leads to the crypt, to the temple next door. and something bad. Maybe it was one of your magic items that you brought back. Did you have those checked? Did you? No, you didn't. Guess what? It's your fault. You're being attacked by zombies right now. And of course, you're down hit points. You just barely made it back to the tavern. You blame your dungeon master for all these terrible things. And dungeon master's just like, dude, that's real life, man.
Yeah.
That's real life. Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay, folks, take inspiration from this. I'm telling you, you just got to keep your eyes open for the weird, crazy shit that happens in real life.
Okay, wait, there's another one. I gotta tell you. So, all right, so ancient Greek temple. It was built in 800 BC, right?
Uh-huh.
All around that temple, there's holes because people were buried everywhere there for literally hundreds and hundreds of years. Okay. And it is solid rock, right? So they had to carve into the rocks. So the spaces between each of the tombs is like a couple inches, and it's just all filled in. Now, of course, it's been 3,000 years, so it's all filled in with dirt. But what I'm saying is that your normal temple would have had hundreds and hundreds of graves all around it. So again, the next time that your party is wandering around some old temple, and then they wonder why zombies are popping up out of the ground everywhere.
Yeah, hundreds of them.
If a temple has been around for 500 years, you've got literally hundreds of dead bodies all around it. So make that encounter as big as you want, because that's real life.
Crazy. So crazy. Yeah, you guys do, what are some of the other destinations you guys do? I think I saw, did I see Egypt? Or am I just imagining that?
Yes.
Okay.
We are, fingers crossed, we're going to Egypt.
Okay.
There's having some trouble next door.
Yeah, that's true.
So hopefully we're going to Egypt. We'll find out. Yeah, as of right this moment, it's still kind of a little up in the air. But Egypt, we do Greece, we do Tuscany, Sicily, which is where my family's from. So you get to meet some of my family.
Hey!
It's embarrassing for everybody, but
Do they pull out the old baby pictures?
Right. They're like, why do you keep bringing all these people, these different people every time? It's like we get to actually do some things that locals do that only locals do, and it's kind of amazing because
this is the best way to travel.
We get into some cities and some events that no one usually does. So we are also going to Rome during Carnivale with Jack Z Whipper. So super TikTok mega star Jack Z Whipper.
Oh, is he? Is he on TikTok a lot?
I think he just hit like 3 million followers or something like that. Yeah, so
I will tell you. So I shared with a few of my D&D friends when we did your interview for Dungeon Studios. One of the guys, he immediately recognized you because of Jack the Whipper. And he was just like, "Oh, he does shows with that Whipper guy." And I was like, "Whipper guy. Oh yeah, I should know who he is, but I don't. I know who you are."
Yes. Well, it's great. We I've known him for probably like 15 years, So like when he just started doing renfairs and all this other stuff. So we've been friends forever. I have tons of blackmail material on him, so if you want to,
Yes, let's blackmail him so he has to be on my show.
Right. So,
that's amazing.
That's why he joins our games. So it's like. But yeah, no, he's really great. So we're gonna go to Rome. It's gonna be his first international appearance, and so we're going during Carnivale. It's a ton of fun. You can find out all that information off of the RenAdventures is the name of our overarching company that we do all these tours with. So we do the Destination D&D, we do regular tours, but they're all kind of crazy. There's a lot of history. There's usually a lot of wine when we go to Italy. We sometimes go to Czech Republic. There's a great festival. Oh my gosh, this festival's so amazing. It's in the town of Český Krumlov.
Okay.
It's an amazing. The whole city is an UNESCO World Heritage Site, right? So you have castle, you have cathedral, you have just the whole city. The river like zigzags through the city. If you've ever seen the movie The Illusionist, with Edward Norton.
Yes,
that was filmed in that city. It was filmed in that city, and it was really funny. Okay, my friends are sick and tired of me talking about all these places that I go, and so they were watching it, and I hadn't seen it before. And so I sit down and I go, "Wow, golly, some of those shots really remind me of this cute little city in the Czech Republic. It's called Český Krumlov, blah 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 blah," and they're just like. And but then the camera pans to the left, and there's the tower for the castle, which is a gigantic pink and green tower.
There's no mistaking
and I was like,
it.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's why it reminds me of that town, because it is that.
Oh
and
my
then
gosh.
then you do that thing where you're looking like, oh, I know where that is. Oh, that's nowhere near that.
Yeah.
Like, like they turn a corner and you're like,
They're doing this
no,
all
that
wrong.
pastry shop is like 4 blocks away. It's not around the corner there. So sometimes we'll go to Czech Republic, have a great time. We'll do that city. We'll do Prague, of course. And then we go to Kutna Hora, which is an amazing city. Okay, you want to talk about some crazy stuff in real life. So it is an ossuary, which is it's where you take all the bones and you stack them all up and you keep them there.
What?
Because what happened was plague hits.
Okay.
And they got to bury more bodies. And the graveyard is completely full.
Right.
So they dig up everybody who's been there for a while, and all that's left are bones. So then you take all the bones and you put them in an ossuary, which is a little chapel, and you just stack the bones. If you're familiar with the underground in France, in Paris,
Right.
they just mountains and mountains and mountains and mountains of bone, right? So they took all of those and started stacking them, and apparently there was like one guy whose job it was to stack all these bones up. I have to say, check out the pictures. He's a little OCD. And
oh gosh, I'm already getting an image.
yeah, and then he went a little creative. So chandeliers made of bones, like stacked skulls in amusing shapes, like decorations all made with bone, because he just literally thousands of bone, right? He even made, very creative, he made the king's emblem out of bone. And the king's emblem is like, it's a bird doing this thing.
Yeah.
And then but made it out of hand bones, like the wings.
Wow.
And, it's amazing. Like the work, the detail, stunning. So
wow.
Next time you've got a necromancer, just remember these things actually exist.
Yes, right? You could be like a very
Crazy
artistic
chandeliers made of
necromancer.
skulls. Yeah, it's not as far-fetched as people think.
That is so cool.
Yeah, a stack of skulls with candles in the head. That actually exists.
I want to keep asking about these bones, but I feel like that is not on topic. But it's so interesting. Let's get back to Eart. Because I want to, the focus of my channel is world building, using the real world to help you with world building. I want to go over people's processes of world building because everyone's different. And I think that, it can help someone understand how to world build better. It sounds like you have taken a lot of real world history and the real world in general and used that to create Eart. Are there any elements, obviously magic and stuff is not real world, but is there anything that you had to build that was not of the real world?
Oh yeah, reasons for the places. And then the best thing about building your own world, of course. And again, as I was saying earlier, when I was 15, I made some crazy world. In a world full of magic where you can literally call down a meteor strike and I'm gonna change the face of the planet right now.
Yeah.
I am a powerful wizard. Kabloom. You can have some really amazing, crazy features. Taking from the real world where I always thought mountain ranges, I always thought mountains, you had foothills. You always had foothills and then you had mountains.
Yeah.
Right? But that is not actually always the case. Sometimes a mountain literally will come out of just a flat terrain.
Yeah.
You're driving through New Mexico and you're it's dead flat, and then there's just
one mountain.
you're what is that doing there?
That is interesting. I'd never thought about that. Yeah.
And it happens in the Alps as well. Literally, they're so big. They're 2 hours away, and you're I can see them, and it's just flat, and then just a giant mountain. Mount Etna is 10% of the island of Sicily. It's
really?
Huge. Yeah, it's gigantic. Go to Google Earth and look at how big Mount Etna actually is. There's towns all over the volcano. all over the volcano.
That is a really great piece of advice, is going to Google Earth. I have done that just to just pick a random spot. Like, let's spin the world and where do we land on? And let's zoom in and see what this place looks like. Because, if you can't travel there physically, at least Google Earth has what you need to be able to see it. Yeah.
It's the largest volcano in all Europe, and it's still active and smokes every day.
And people live there, right?
People live all over it because it's so big.
Yeah.
They're not in any harm's way. They're like, the mountain goes off every day. It does from time to time change the face of the planet. Like the fantasy element of building a world. And of course, what I have done, so in my world, I have ley lines, which are the kind of magical, you can draw power from them. Mm-hmm. And so where they cross, they don't usually cross, but where they do cross, that's an extreme amount of power. So you build, and so of course, all right, great power, you have plenty of not just wizards, but demigods, all sorts of creatures who are like, F you, pal, I'm gonna just drop a column of rock right here. And, a god could just instantly build a city on top of something and just be like, yeah, what are you gonna do about it? So
fight me.
Crazy stuff happens, and you're like, yeah, okay, so make it happen. And because my world, I'd say my world is a little silly, but also it's deadly. It's just as deadly as any other D&D game. But I do love to have like I take the magical process, or even just like, well, if you do have owlbears, if you do have these things, what actually happens in the society? What is the next logical process? Mm. So one of the things in my world are moops. People love them. It's a moop, and it's half cow, half sheep. It is the one creature that wizards created that's actually good for humanity.
Oh, okay.
It's, look, wizard made an owlbear.
Yeah.
Whose idea was that? That's horrible. Many deaths by owlbear.
Yeah.
Chimeras, hippogriffs, all these mashups.
And finally, someone got it right.
Someone got it right. So
That's
a moop
amazing.
is the size of a gigantic cow, but it has all the wool of a sheep. So not only are they delicious, but leather, lots of wool, and big giant horns that you can make things out of.
Yeah.
And they're mostly docile, unless you can get them to stampede.
Do you get moop milk?
So, moop milk. And there's moop milk. So they give moop milk and moop cheese, and it's a boon. It's the best thing ever. So, and of course they're super fluffy. And I will tell you the secret. This is where I got this idea. Driving through the countryside, and if you ever look over and you see a field, and there's a big giant, sometimes they're white, sometimes they're black, and it just looks like a big giant marshmallow sitting in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Some people say that it's a bunch of hay that has been rolled in plastic. Actually, it's a moop.
Is it?
So, yeah, you just weren't close enough to see there's actually a giant cow underneath that is a whole bunch of fur. So yeah, I was like, what are those? They're moops, and of course moop, the name moop comes from moo and sheep.
Yeah.
So moop.
I love it.
So
I might have to add a moop in my game.
So if you go to my Patreon, or if you go to the Nat 21 Adventures Patreon, there are moop stats and pictures of moops, and there's all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, we have a little Patreon. We do maps and all that sort of stuff, and also if you join our Patreon, there's a ton of free stuff, but then there's also if you whatever level you're at, you can affect our game while we play it live on our Twitch channel.
So cool.
So that's a lot of fun. But so we have moops. Oh, and that's right. So what is some other magical things? Giant eagles. What if you can ride them? What if you don't have enough money for teleportation spell? But we've got these people who can ride giant hawks. So the hawk turns into kind of a delivery service. It's like UPS. You absolutely need this magic scroll from one city to another city. And so it's called, we call it the Uber Hawk. And And so so they have offices in various cities. So again, it's like, it's kind of like UPS, but they'll deliver one thing to another city, and you're like, I need to deliver this to this city. They know it's coming or whatever, and they will go as fast as they can. Well, they also then realized that, and this kind of like happened naturally, where an adventurer was like, can I talk to this guy? Can I get a ride? Like, yeah, it'll cost you.
Yeah.
And then it became like, well, these hawks aren't, these aren't really, they're giant hawks, but they're not really meant to carry too many people.
Right.
So you can get like,
it's not a bus.
You can get a couple people. Right. Yeah, it's not a bus. You can get a couple people on there. So then did this whole thing where you can go to the Uber Hawk station and you can buy a magic egg. And basically, if you're out on an adventure somewhere, you can call an Uber Hawk. And you basically, like, it's a communication rock. Basically, it looks like an egg. It's just a stone.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, where am I? You have to be on the surface. They're not going to go find you in a dungeon.
Right.
And then you wait, and maybe they're close by, and maybe they're not, but you can try to get a ride. And they're just like, I'm surrounded by orcs. I'm at the top of this mountain. If anybody can come by, that would be great. And they're like, just like Uber in real life, sometimes it's more expensive. They're like, I can pick you up in like an hour, but it's gonna be like 500 gold. They're like, we're not gonna last that long. So we do have a thing called the Uber Hawk, and again, mostly it's delivering actual items, and it's cheaper than teleportation, but it's
depends
slower
on what
than
you need, I
teleportation.
guess. Yeah.
Right, depends on what you need. So we've had adventures where like the Uber Hawk came by and was like, you guys okay? I mean, I saw you fighting. Just checking. All right. And they fly off and Uber Hawk.
It's so funny. I was waiting to see where that was going to go, because I have something very similar in my world. Though I don't call it an Uber Hawk. In my world, in most of the major cities, not the smaller cities or anything like that, there is a little building that looks like an outhouse, very tiny, like one-person building, called Verdant Bound Transportation something, blah, blah. It's run by this one woman, and it's like Doctor Who's thing, where it's bigger on the inside, and each of the outhouses, they're all like the same
they're all connected
place. Yeah. So in her little box, she has like a whole stable of flying, giant flying eagles and griffins or whatever that she's trained, like not a bunch of them, but enough that if people need to rent them and then they return them to one city, she still has access to them from wherever she's at. But whenever you show up, you got to knock on the door and you have to wait, because maybe she's tending to someone else in another city, and then she's got to like walk through to the other door and open that. And
again, like, not everyone has magic powers.
Yeah.
But if you live near, this, and of course, like the whole, I had to make it make sense, right? It's like, where do giant hawks live? Up in these mountains. Okay, well, there's towns near these mountains, and all the people who live around those towns, they're flyers. They're like, yeah, it's like How to Train Your Dragon, sort of, but it's like, you're like, I've bonded with this hawk, and wait, there's a job that I can have just flying? Holy smokes, like, that's the best thing ever. So like, sometimes there's some people more they're more encouraged, and it's absolutely random roll. Like, if they call an Uber Hawk and they're like, if they didn't go to like the station in the town, and because you can be like, hey, when's your next delivery to that city? Like, okay, hey, can I get a space on it? And they're like, yeah, you can transport yourself, but if you're just out in the wild and you've got the communication stone, some of the young flyers who are like thirsting for adventure are gonna be more prone to pick you up. The other ones are like, I ain't doing that, man. Like,
too far out of my way. It's dinner in 10 minutes.
It's too far out of my way. It's dangerous. You're telling me you're getting attacked by owlbears? Nah, I ain't doing that, pal. And you're just like, you're on your own. And so like that's but I love that as well, because again, what do you do with a magical world where some people do have magical powers, obviously, and then you're like, I'll do a business because I do like to help adventurers, or whatever, like I was a young adventurer and now I have blah blah blah. And then of course you have wild creatures that are monster-ish, but could be tamed. So why not? And I always like to think about, like, what are the people who don't have power, magical powers, or power in general.
Yeah.
What are they doing? You know?
Right.
Like, not everybody can be a magician. Not everybody can be an adventurer. I do. Oh, okay. You might. So one of the other things in my world, and that's another thing I will occasionally do on our Nat 21 TikTok is we have commercials for some of the businesses that exist in our places.
Oh, really? How cool.
And, yes. And one of them is the Gambellini Insurance, Afterlife Insurance. Because the city of Magecroft has a very large cemetery. It's a necropolis. And there are literally hundreds of thousands of dead and undead. And it is controlled by a council of liches. Not a lich.
Wow.
A council of liches. Because there's so many of them. They've literally been around for 3,000 years. And people keep dying. So that they're just building more.
Yeah.
And so they have an agreement with the city that, you can come in, all this stuff. But so you're in a world where any random necromancer can bring you back. Mm-hmm. You don't want that. Who wants that? Nobody wants that. So if you're rich enough to afford afterlife insurance, the Gambellinis will make sure that you are not raised from the dead. And if you die, then there's levels. There's if you get the very base level, basically they will guarantee that you are not raised from the dead by any unregistered necromancer. Mm-hmm. So only the best necromancers can bring you back. Right?
Okay.
So there's a list, and they're like the approved necromancers. So you don't end up being some zombie in some necromancer's crappy army. Uh-huh. You got things to do.
Yeah.
Are you secure in your afterlife? Now you can be. And wait.
So are the Gambellinis? Are they necromancers? Because I thought this was going to a place where it was like, no, we'll revive you or resurrect you, but not.
They have arrangements.
Oh, okay.
They make arrangements. No, they're the ones who just make the arrangements.
Okay.
So they got a lot of friends. But if you are one of the top paying people, you will have an item on you that if you should die, they will send out, no matter where you are on Eart, they will send out a party to get you and bring you back and make sure that your body is taken care of and not raised from the dead. We've had some party. We actually had a adventure where they got hired by the Gambellinis to go and find this very rich person, and because he suddenly died. Wow, this really ties everything together. So he was a moop magnate. So he was one of the very, very rich moop herders.
Wow.
Had a huge flock of moops. He had a huge herd of moops, but he mysteriously died. And so the party got embroiled in this whole murder mystery where there was the other families of moop herders, and because there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money in there. And then it was great. And then they actually ended up coming back home on an Uberhawk.
That really did tie everything together, didn't it?
They did. They were like, screw this, call an Uberhawk. This is dumb. They got it. But if you are necromancer, all right. So this is that world building thing. If you have a mine, okay, mines are dangerous.
Yeah.
People die, or people are already dead. So you get dead to mine in the worst mines. Mm-hmm. Because monsters aren't going to eat skeletons.
Yeah.
There's no meat on that. They're going to maybe they're going to chew on the bones. Okay, fine. There are some monsters that might do that. But for the most part, if you're a skeleton, just
free labor.
It's free labor. Not only that, OSHA doesn't care.
Yeah.
If the cave is not up to par, and there's, you gotta have support beams over here and over here. This is never gonna work, Tony. And you're like, no, there's no one doing that. They're just gonna carve it out as much as they can. It'll collapse. It might destroy a few of them, but who cares?
Yeah.
So the base of the economy is undead skeletons mining the crappiest stuff out of the ground.
That is so crazy. I love to see the connections that you make to get there, right? Because I've never made that connection before with, I haven't really thought about necromancers that much before, actually. So now that you've walked me through the process, I'm like, that makes complete sense. And yeah, why aren't there more skeletons in my world just being used?
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Literally, people have been dying since the beginning of people.
Yeah. Wow.
So
going back to the beginning. Okay, real quick. I want you to I want to visualize what the first game in Eart looked like. Did you already have like, and what I mean by this is because I want to help people who are trying to like build a world. Did you have the larger concept already figured out, and then you just kind of figured out the smaller details as you went, or did you have this small little place that you started in the adventure and then you built the world out?
Yes. Start small.
Okay.
Start so small. Look, if you feel like it's going to overwhelm you, then it probably is. This is the advice that I would give to any starting out dungeon master. Look, the players aren't going to see the whole world. You can tell them about the whole world. You can be like, yeah, sure. But you know what? If you're going to have some, and I also recommend, if you are a new dungeon master, start everybody at level 1. It's going to be an adventure.
Yeah.
Like, if, I recently saw some post about like somebody was like, I'm a brand new DM, I'm going to start everybody at 20th level. And I was like, well, where are you going to go from there?
Yeah.
And also, and they're new players. And I'm like, you're going to have a character sheet that's like 18 pages long.
Yeah,
just from,
and
like,
you
one
won't
guy's
even know how to
spells.
run your character. Yeah.
And no one will know how to do it. Start at first level.
Yeah.
So, some of my most memorable game playing moments was between first and second level, where the party literally struggled to finish 4 skeletons.
Yeah.
Okay. And like, it literally came down to a Saving Private Ryan moment where they're literally tussling with the skeleton that's trying to just stab them. And you're like, oh my, no, there was people they literally were like, we're standing up at that moment, like going like, get it. And you're like, oh God. And then, I'm out of spells. What am I doing? I'm out of ammo, and like some of the most fun and hilarious and also just like tension filled moments is when you're
low level,
first, second level.
Yeah.
And you're like, you could go down in an instant.
Yeah.
And so start small, right? Have everybody start in a village, make a tiny village, and then go from there. Because and again, if you do that, well then everybody's from that village. Okay, start small, and then you can build. And then the thing is that you go, well, you've heard of the big city. Maybe there's more adventure to be had in the big city.
Yeah.
But this is session, 10. By the time they get out of the surrounding area and have defeated the local goblins and maybe some orcs and maybe an owlbear,
You have a thing against owlbears, don't you?
It seems to be it's a recurring theme, honestly. So we had owlbears. We've had owlbears in 2, and there might be more owlbears. So this is the thing is that Muncaster Castle, the place where we do our tours, the D&D tours, they have an owl sanctuary.
Oh.
Right, so like when we go there,
That's right.
We're gonna do some falconry. We're gonna get to meet the owls and all that sort of stuff. So it's really cool. Like all the things this is the nice thing about having a family that runs this castle is that they're gonna pull out the archery for us, and we're gonna like shoot some bows, and there's all sorts of cool mazes and things like that. But it's gonna be a ton of fun. In the game that we played, we had like Mad Druid actually come in and polymorph the owls, but turned them into owlbears, basically. And so like bam, 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 and then he like controlled them and sent them out and wrecked the place. And the last one we did last year, there was a magic beer, but the side effect of the beer, when you make beer, you have the leftover stuff. Right?
Yeah.
It's edible as gruel if you're feeding orphans, which is what they were doing.
Ooh.
But when you have magic beer, side effect of magic beer is that the must that's left over also magical.
Yeah.
And it was turning the orphans into little baby owlbears.
Oh my God.
And so I got all these little tiny owlbear minis.
I love it.
They're adorable. So the adventure was kind of like, where did these owlbears come from? Why are there tiny owlbears? And so there's all these crazy mysteries, but anyway.
Oh,
so owlbears, reoccurring theme. I don't know. I like owlbears. I love the idea of owlbears again, and this is where the moops came from, because I'm like, could any wizard possibly make something that isn't detrimental to all of the people on the planet?
Yeah.
Like, they thought about how, They thought so hard about could it be done, they didn't think about should it be done.
Yeah.
And and I was like, how about something that feeds people as and like a moop. It's perfect. There you go. Bam. Somebody built a statue for that wizard. Okay. Did you see the statue for the guy who built the owlbear? I don't think so. I didn't think so.
So there's a statue for the moop guy.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
You know what they're going to do? They're going to build a paper mache doll of the guy who made the owlbear, and they're going to burn it every year on his birthday, like Avatar Day.
I love it.
Oh, here's a little world building thing that I do. All right, so I take real holidays and put them in your game and change them to your thing. We don't have the running of the bulls. We have the running of the Tiamat statue. Every once a year, the priests of Tiamat bring the statue to life, and it rampages through the city, like on a prescribed route. So you can run with the Tiamat. And
that's amazing.
if you're familiar with the running of the bulls, if you are going to join into this extravaganza, you dress all in white with a big red sash, right? So instead of just a red sash, you have the sash of the color that you would most like to be killed by.
Yes.
So blue for lightning, white for the frost, black, red, green. So you're the chromatic heads, and it goes on this prescribed route because again it is a religious holiday. It's not just rampage. It's not Godzilla. It's not rampaging through the city.
Right.
But it's a test of faith. It's just a crazy festival. I mean, people running of the bulls is a real thing that really exists on Earth.
And it's so dangerous.
Remember, when building crazy things like the running of the owlbears, hey, it's just using what you got, man.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of bulls? Use bulls. You got owlbears? Use owlbears. You've got a statue of Tiamat that the priests can bring to life every once a year? Well, we call it Tiamas. But, Tiamas comes around only once a year, boys. Let's do this.
I love the idea that basically you're choosing your own death. Like, how nerve-wracking would that be? Like, which way would I want to die? Lightning sounds painful.
Definitely want electricity.
Yeah.
Totally want electricity. Yeah, it's got to be electricity.
Oh, man. So
I also I have there's another religious holiday that I put. Okay, so I made up a god. Its name is Jawsus.
Oh, that's right.
And it's basically a giant shark, and it's the circle of life. It's actually a neutral god that's actually in the life domain.
Oh, okay.
Because the shark believes in the circle of life.
This is true. Yeah.
Little fish gets eaten by a bigger fish.
Yeah.
And like undead is an aberration, right?
Uh-huh.
So like you do not mess with the circle of life when Jawsus is around. Like you get eaten, and then So they are super anti-undead. There's a no-go, which is great. Okay, so people who have been playing my campaigns, who have played Priests of Jawsus or Paladins of Jawsus, they've really got, that is kind of a cool kind of philosophy. Like, yeah, you know what? Just keep swimming, man. Just keep swimming. Like, we're all chum in the eyes of Jawsus. Chum.
We're all chum.
Like, hey, chum, have we told you the good word of Jawsus? And people have really gotten into this. Yeah, it's philosophically, it's actually kind of a.
I love that. Is it the symbol of that little fish? like the little Jesus fish. What's the symbology?
It's actually it's the poster of Jaws, the movie. Which is heading up. So and then of course, if you're familiar with another religious holiday that I stole for Jawsus is the greasy pole. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
Why does it sound familiar?
Up in Gloucester, Massachusetts, they do a thing where they have they build a little deck out in the water, and then they put a telephone pole, and they put 9 inches of grease on it, and what they do is they put a little a Sicilian flag on the end of it, and you have to run down the greasy pole and grab the flag. Now, it's 30 feet long.
Wow.
And it's 9 inches of grease. You're not gonna make it. And people fly off that thing and fall into the water, and it's a 3-day long extravaganza. It's kind of amazing, honestly. If you ever go up to Gloucester, Massachusetts, just check it out. So in my world, because of course Jawsus being a giant shark, he's next to the water. Mm-hmm. And so they have a thing where you put a symbol of Jawsus out on the greasy pole, and if you can grab it on the celebration of the Jaws Day, then you're guaranteed not to be eaten by a shark for 1 full year. So,
Okay, I like that.
So you're immune. You're immune to being eaten by a shark. Yes, you're immune to shark attacks for a whole year. You are clearly the favorite Jawses, so
yeah,
there you go.
I love it. Okay,
So,
I want, oh gosh, your stories are just amazing. Like, we did this with Dungeon Studios where it was like, we could just keep talking and talking and talking. I do, however, have to let you go because your other episode is airing tonight. And so, folks, even though you're not going to see this episode until after that, make sure you go back to Dungeon Studios and check out that other interview because, gosh, just so much hilarity ensued. Like, I think you guys have probably seen me, like, kind of dabbing my eyes, but, like, the other interview, we were just laughing so hard and I was crying the entire time. I just feel so happy to have the opportunity to have some one-on-one time here with Paolo on my channel. The website at the bottom of the page is garbanzojuggling.com, and I just want to confirm for everybody that all the things we've mentioned, your destination tours, the Nat 21 adventures, all of that can be accessed from that website, right?
There's links.
There's links to everything.
RenAdventures, you go to my website, garbanzojuggling.com, and that also links to Nat 21 Adventures, which is also a website, and RenAdventures, I said Renaissance Adventures, and those, so the RenAdventures goes to all the tours, Nat 21 goes to our Twitch channel and all the things you can get. You can get your very own Nat 21 die, and then of course, if you go to my website, of course, there's got links to all that, and of course, it also has all my tour dates and things like that. So you can find all of that there. I tour all over the country from as far north as, how far north do I go? Connecticut, and then I go down along the coastline to Texas. So I do all sorts of different fairs, New Orleans, of course, and Maryland, and then of course I go to Europe in the summer, and we do a whole bunch of events there. So I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, so that's why you need a website so that you can, figure out where he is in the world at any time. So, anyway, I just want to thank you, Paolo. I don't know if you heard when your picture went away, but I am so happy that I had the opportunity to have you on my channel and get this one-on-one time with you. And then we got to talk about Eart because we didn't get to talk about that last time.
So many things. I know. And if you get to Gen Con or, I'm trying to get to Origins maybe, but I'll definitely be at Gen Con. By all means, I'm more than happy to chat about any wacky Eart happenings.
Yes.
Great to see you again, and let's talk more.
Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you folks soon.
Absolutely.
If you want to know more about Paolo and all that he's involved in, check out his site at garbanzojuggling.com. From there, you can connect to his schedule of events and his D&D Destination Tour site, RenAdventures. Don't forget, check out their Nat 21 adventures and pick yourself up a D21 so you can crit harder than any of your friends. Make sure you like and subscribe for more interviews like this, and thanks for getting pretty nerdy with us.